This is Konganaya outside of Demico, the western pavement of Demico, and they are of course performing some cultural tunes Saturday morning. nah bite me. Sister Palmer, holy dog. Old dog nah bite me. Only the poor man I feel it. Only the poor man I feel it, yeah. What is this? Something is playing in my background. Morning, neighbor, morning. How are you doing? I'll tell you the truth, I'm feeling tired, eh? But I ain't tired of fighting. You cannot afford not to fight. You gotta keep the fight going. You see, many believe that when you get tired, the option is to give up. But in this Iowa, when you give up on the struggle, you might as well give up on life. Because, as I say, death before dishonor. And the minute you're prepared to throw your hands up in the air and say, hey, I ain't able no more, they're going to mash you down to the earth. As they say, come make me mash them down, now loose. Yes, they will mash you down. That's their aim. Them not stop. They don't intend to stop until they get their way. But I'm positive that, as they say, good will triumph over evil. The masses will triumph over the wicked and vindictive, corrupt and criminal, racist and prejudicial cabal. And we must keep that in mind. Keep hope alive, they say. Right? We must keep that alive. I've heard of a demonstration of unity. Usually it comes out of Buxton. Oh, yeah, when I tell you Buxton is the rebellion capital, y'all don't believe. Hearsay. I can't tell you all the whole story, man, because people are going to get red eye and they're going to want to play bully. But at the end of the day, Buxton has once again proven that when the masses are prepared to act together, them big boys say act in concert, the people will triumph. I understand that was demonstrated over this weekend, or the last weekend in Buxton, where the people acted in concert. And the agents of oppression simply had to pull their tails between their legs and leave the people to their own means. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Guyanese, I encourage you to recognize that in unity there is strength. I encourage you to recognize that when the masses join hearts and hands together, the oppressors and the agents of oppression will have no choice but to haul them legs, them tails between them legs, and crawl away, whimper away. Just like how the black attorney general put his tail between his legs when he was in New York and whimpered away. Wimp, we call them. That's what they will do when the masses of this country decided that, hey, we have had enough and we are going to unite on this cause. It is now 6 hours 52 on the 15th day of July in the year 2021. It's a Thursday, and so we are going to have Minister of Finance Winston Jordan in the house. Normal thing. And we're going to talk about some abnormal things, along with normal things perhaps. Right? I'm also going to be looking out for, them trolls. I got some stories to tell them this morning. A lot of these folks behave like the proverbial ostrich. They put their heads so deeply in the sand to pretend that all is well around them. Because they have no integrity. They have no integrity. They have no desire for better for their fellow citizens. They're comfortable sitting around the table, the master's table, and selling their souls for pittances. But we will talk about them. A lot of them are going to be revealed in time. In the meantime, let's talk about what we do normally. And so it is time for us to do the thing. Invite the ancestors in as per normal. Morning, neighbor. Morning. Dennis Booker. What's name calling? What's up in your corner of the woods? What's? I hear you say you frighten nobody, why? Because the fat guy has commended you. Oh, lad, oi. Where some people think that it's getting legitimacy from. All it takes is the buttering up from Fat Ali. A buttering up from the fat guy to get Watts to show his hand. I'm informed he's always a soup drinker. It's only now that he's drinking it more openly. Morning, neighbor. Morning.
One string, one quarry, one jill black pepper. All of
conniving man. Advantage never done. Advantage never done. For as long as the haves insist that they have not must go through all kinds of discriminatory practices in order to get a piece of the pie, advantage could never done. The rich businessman demands sexual favors to employ the innocent teenager. The powerful minister of government demands sexual favors to employ the innocent teenager. The powerful CEO demands a dinner date to employ the innocent teenager. The powerful gang of five in the Ghana Defense Force and in the Ghana Defense Force are abusing their ranks, disregarding their constitutional and human rights so that they can keep their jobs. We'll talk about some of that. Minister Winston Jordan, welcome to this morning's show. Oh, your song so low. Is the phone or you?
And realize that today is Thursday.
What?
You know, so I think it's the rain, you know. I mean, the rain. I heard you saying just now that you're tired. So, and I'm figuring that this is July. So normally, July, August are the holiday period. So, you know, maybe you might be thinking of taking a holiday.
But that thing don't bother me.
Or the period might be telling you it's time for holiday.
No, I know why you're tired.
You know why you're tired?
And it ain't got nothing to do with strokers. I didn't take any strokers.
that's the alternative to Nutrifast?
Well, boy, I got a good supply of strokers, so you know.
Yes.
It could be a go-to thing.
Yes, I guess.
Anyways.
So what's happening?
Hi there, man. I just you know, I was busy earlier than normal, so it comes back to haunt you.
Okay.
Anyways, I see a lot of things been happening in this society, but let me start and talk about how them boys take you off BUXTONIAN morning time and put you up on the page, no? You get celebrity status.
Well, I not for one moment didn't think that they were all listening. I knew that from a very long time, and in fact, I think a couple of weeks ago I indicated to you that I was going to stop making recommendations because I noticed that several of the recommendations that I was making was being packaged and being thrown out as if they were the government's own, you know. And I wasn't being paid for copyright or any such thing.
You know these guys are accustomed to plagiarizing.
Sorry?
You know they are accustomed to plagiarizing. Remember the textbook scam?
Yes. You know, so I wasn't surprised. It also suggests you know, that one has to be very smart in terms of what one is putting out there, because as you can see, even what they took from your KAMS TV, they never even acknowledged source or anything, or they never even asked you whether they could have taken part of your thing and treat it as if it were some advertisement, because that is essentially what happened. They took a part of your thing without your permission and put it on their page and use it as an advertisement or media advisory or whatever the case may be. Did you think about suing them or something? Or asking them for some monies?
You see, there's a funny thing, you know. I am really, really afraid of asking the PPP for anything. Right?
Well, well, I agree. Look, I agree with that part, but I mean, there must be some set of laws or something about using images and so on without permission. You know, I'm sure there are such laws, and also when they're using it in such an unprofessional manner, they cut out a piece that they thought is favorable, and they left out perhaps the most important piece, which is that what we were saying is instead of bringing these singular motions that targeted two ministers out of the 20 plus ministers that they have, why not bring a whole, why not wait at the opportune time and bring a whole motion of no confidence in the entire government? You know, because in bringing, as we said, in bringing these, in singling out these two individuals, you're technically suggesting that the rest have performed creditably. You know, not unless you intend bringing every couple of months a no confidence motion in the other ministers, which you know, which will not resonate. You know, so but of course they're not going play the entire thing. You know, and while we're on the motions part, I noticed the speaker, the speaker in his wisdom has sent the two motions to the Attorney General for a legal opinion. You know, it's a very interesting country, very, 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 and sometimes Guyana is not a real place. Many people have said so before. You know, here you have in the courts a matter to do with the independence and autonomy of constitutional agencies, and this matter, in part, arose from the fact that there was some taken away of the financial independence that was given to these constitutional agencies under the coalition government. The Police Service Commission that used to get, I think, Police Service Commission, some of the other commissions that used to get advice from the Attorney General's chambers. Apparently, when the Police Service Commission approached the Attorney Generals, because I think they were being named in that suit or whatever was being brought, approached the Attorney General's chambers for representation, they allegedly were refused, and so they had to go and find their own representation for which they had to pay. And you know the rest of that story. You know the rest of that story, where subsequently, as a result of doing that, the whole Police Service Commission members were suspended or whatever because they were claiming to be acting against the government. But that's aside. So now you have another constitutional agency in Parliament office that is seeking the advice of the Attorney General in a matter in which the executive, for which the Attorney General is a part, leader of confidence on the opposition leader and the motion of the other two ministers, and he's seeking this advice from the Attorney General, who is part of the executive. But listen to this: when they wanted advice in the context of the removal of the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, they went to a private lawyer. They went to a private lawyer when they wanted advice in respect of the removal of the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. So now they want the same advice, but they're going to a lawyer who is bound up in the executive for him to tell you it is okay to go ahead with the motions against two members of his cabinet. this a real country?
The country is real. The country is very real. It is the people that we have issues with. Right? It is the people we have issues with.
How can the constitutional agencies demand independence and autonomy when they seek to involve the executive in their business? How can they? And unlike a small constitutional agencies such as the Police Service Commission, the Parliament Office is well endowed with financial resources that they can use to acquire the services of an independent lawyer to get independent, unbiased advice. Not to say the Attorney General will give them biased advice and so on, but the appearance of bias is what you have to negate by going in for an independent lawyer.
But has it not been established? I heard you mention it earlier, that in the instance of the Police Service Commission, in the last minute, the so-called Attorney General pulled up from representing the Police Service Commission, saying that according to the statutes, basically, the AG cannot advise the constitutional agency. Now, if this has already been established, why then is the Speaker sending these motions for advice to the AG? And why is the AG accepting or entertaining them? It's the duplicity.
The AG is correct. The AG is correct. He cannot advise constitutional agencies. If I'm not wrong, the Attorney General is the President's advisor. First and foremost is the President advisor. And essentially, the President and the Attorney General comprises a cabinet. They don't really necessarily have to name anybody else. All he does is name, in fact, the first person who gets named in the cabinet is really the Attorney General. And the President could stop right there. And the two of them could comprise the whole cabinet. He's essentially the President's advisor. And he's right. He can't normally tender advice to constitutional agencies. And he's come out and he said so. So why is the Speaker sending these motions to the Attorney General for legal advice? Why? So it is good for some, but not good for others. The same Parliament Office went to an independent lawyer when they wanted to get advice about the removal of the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. The same person. So I continue to say again, it can't be a real place. It can't be a real place at all. And sometimes people in authority who know better seek not to show that they know better.
You see,
go ahead.
My contention will forever remain. Guyana is a good place. It's the people them. You mentioned that removal of Patterson from the Public Accounts Committee. We have already argued that allowing that to happen would have set up bad precedents. And as they say, as old people say, "My spit not dry yet." And we're seeing exactly that happening. Have you ever heard of such motions as the one that has been filed to remove the leader of the opposition? A no confidence motion against the leader of the opposition by the government?
Look, it is unheard of, never heard of before, and in keeping with the constitutional articles and so forth about the removal of the opposition leader and so on, it cannot be countenanced. And in fact, I think what is going on right now is just showmanship bravado, and so on. I don't think they think that the motion has a ghost of a chance of being accepted by the speaker, but they want to embarrass the opposition leader, and since they own most of the press, essentially they keep it alive and so on, in the hope that they will perhaps keep the opposition leader on the back foot. But I don't think they recognize that it has a ghost of a chance of going on an order paper, or being debated as such. But for them, the annoyance and the embarrassment, if they think that the opposition leader is being embarrassed, is good enough, But I don't think it will have a ghost of a chance getting on the order paper for debate as such, Similarly, I have my doubts as to whether a motion of no confidence can be brought singularly against a minister. I don't think the standing orders provide for it, nor do I think any law or constitution provides for it. As I said last time, I think the constitution only speaks about a confidence motion in the government, not in singular ministers as such. So I don't think, in my own opinion, and it's not a legal one, but in my own considered layman's opinion, I don't think either of the motions will get on the order paper for debate. If the opposition wishes to show its annoyance and its displeasure with those speakers, as indeed any other speakers, they can bring it. They can bring it in the very parliament, but not by way of motion. They can bring it up when they have to discuss anything in those particular areas. Whether a crime bill is coming up, whether a health matter is coming up, and so on. I think they can use those opportunities to do it. They can use the People's Parliament and the People's Forum to also bring it up. I've noticed a series of meetings that have been announced from time to time over the next couple of weeks by the opposition, and they can also use those opportunities to bring it up, carefully showing where these said ministers have not performed. But I don't believe that these motions will have an opportunity to be heard in Parliament as such.
So are we saying these both the opposition and the representatives of the legitimate government are engaging in showmanship, brinksmanship? They play to the cameras and nothing else?
Well, in my own opinion, I would think so, because, like I said, I don't know that the standing orders, or the Constitution provides for motions of confidence in any member of Parliament. I don't think in my short time in Parliament, my 5+ years in Parliament, have I heard that to be. I don't think there's a precedent. Maybe somebody who knows the Parliament could say, but I don't think there's a precedent in bringing a confidence motion in an individual member of Parliament or a minister. Well, a minister is also a member of Parliament. I've never heard about it before. I don't know if they found a precedent in which it was done, but I don't hear them talking about any precedent that they're following in bringing these two motions. If there's a precedent, then and that precedent we will have to know when it took place, because our constitution is not the 1966 constitution. It's a more recent constitution that has been rewritten and so on. So we will see how this will play out. I think everybody has had their say, but ultimately, if these motions don't get any motion on the floor, which I think will happen, then it's just grandstanding on both sides.
Good. Much ado about nothing. Some more haste and less speed, or something, to the extent people say, oh goodness, people just been taking for a ride. Let it appear as though we're doing something. Let it appear as though we're doing something. Let it appear as though we're doing something.
Well, certainly on the opposition side, they got attention. it perhaps is a way of getting attention. They've got a lot of attention over the last 2 weeks where these two motions are concerned, and I'm certain it has been carried regionally, and I don't know even internationally, but certainly on regional television and so on, it might be picked up. That two motions of confidence have been brought against ministers and so on. So, in that sense, it has given the opposition a boost and a bump, and so on. And their stature has risen somewhat. So now they have to use that now, as I said, and use that kickstart, now and accelerate. Over the it's not 100 yards, but they can use some level of acceleration. And in a sense, it is defining a strategy of the opposition. I mean, they have taken a long time in getting their act together and so on, but it shows somewhat that they seem to have a strategy that is coming out in terms of how to harass the government and make some success of it. Really, so even though if the motions don't get on the floor for debate. If that happens, they would have at least got some press, which perhaps they did not have. It might have given them a boost and some momentum from which they can get under the skin of the government, essentially.
And so yesterday we witnessed the first in what I understand is a series of Wednesday lunchtime protests. Is that upping the ante?
I think it could be in the mold of Desmond Heights. Slow fire, more fire. As I said, they started slow, and now perhaps they have to up the ante. In any case, it's almost a year already of this government being installed. And it would be foolish of them not to be having a series of activities leading up to that particular date. And making their voice heard and showing that they are opposition capable of exposing, opposing, and even deposing the government in the mold of Winston Churchill. I believe it's Winston Churchill who had originally made that comment. So I would give them, as I said, some level of kudos for increasing the tempo as it relates to harassing this government and exposing the government. There's a lot more that can be done, and done in a more coordinated way, so to speak. Like I said, I keep using the word guerrilla tactics, which is, you throw out something now, and then you don't hear anything afterwards for a long time. And they come back next couple of weeks or something with another something and so on. I mean, for me, that lacks the coordination, and the intensity to put this government under pressure. Especially a government that controls literally all the press, except the social media in this country. So the tactics of a guerrilla type intervention would not work at this particular point. It will have to be more in the line of General Powell's approach to the war in I think it was in Kuwait when Iraq invaded Kuwait. I believe that was the war when he said you have to apply maximum force. So the opposition will have to continue to apply maximum pressure to get the attention of the government. Otherwise the government will treat them as a puppy yapping at their heels. As if it were some annoyance or nuisance value,
Yes.
rather than a sustained pressure. So that will be my take of how I see the opposition going forward, and these meet the people and different meetings that they are scheduling is a good sign that they are prepared to come out of their crease, and try to score runs rather than getting bogged down in the crease and soaking up a lot of dot balls.
I certainly agree with you. I am of the opinion which I expressed, I shared with one member of the opposition parliamentary team, that it's a good start yesterday, but I would have anticipated and hoped that it would have been every day, yesterday, today, tomorrow, um, because when you operate like that, it's likely that if you start with 5 parliamentarians yesterday, the possibility is today you would have gotten 5 parliamentarians and 6 or 10 civilians, regular citizens, if you want to call us that. And so that's how the tempo is built. But let's watch and see how the every Wednesday lunchtime protest works out. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm hoping that it works out because look around. We've been hearing whispers from Blinken, I think the guy's name, U.S. Secretary of State. We've been hearing a lot of things from the U.S. in terms of the right of people to protest and so on and so forth. We've seen the Cubans protesting right there in Guyana, and nobody is beating them down. And so, indeed, we should take our cue, the opposition should take its cue, and perhaps start to get out there and get out there in a meaningful way. Not like you say, like a little nuisance. Today you disturb me and tomorrow you give me a whole week to rest and you come back next week. That doesn't give anybody a headache, right? It will not affect Ramson's psychology. So we just got to watch and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, as I said, we got to continue giving them encouragement and working with them, and hopefully, if they reach out, they can get additional ideas as to how to have an effective, coordinated campaign, especially in this what I call low period. This low period, July, August, when many people tend to have different ideas about holiday and vacation and so on. But clearly, it's a period also, as I said, that is leading up to August the 2nd, that gives 1 year of this installed government in power. And clearly, they have to have a mass of activities leading up to that, because they already started with their visits and their high-profile visits in communities around the place, which allows me to mention that I noticed that they are running into a number of communities that are coalition, let us call it coalition communities, only from the standpoint that those communities either voted or are known to vote for the coalition itself. I've seen them run up into Linden. The bishop, he has run up there talking about roads and all kind of thing. And in fact, he's speaking about a road for which his own government had indicated that had they come to power, they would have scrapped the project. Now it's a big show and dance, the Linden to Muburu road. A road that was a road and financing that was conceived under the coalition, and for which we had secured the financing and finally moved talk into action. Because you have heard about the road from Georgetown to Brazil from Linden to Brazil for how long? There have been many promises by different actors about financing the road and so forth, and nothing took place. Nothing took place. And it took the coalition government to move talk into action. We couldn't get the entire road to be done, but we were able to get the stretch from Linden to Muburu financed from a grant that was given by the UK and a loan that was provided by the Caribbean Development Bank. And the government indicated some level of finance that it would put in place. And we weren't going to build some sand road or throw some gravel as is being done in other areas. It was going to be an international road that could withstand the pressures of the rainforest and so forth. Now I see the bishop running up there giving the impression as if the project were a PPP project. It's not a PPP project. They are now implementing a coalition project. To the people, the coalition people.
Mr. Jordan,
I have said it. Yes.
I'm sorry. We lost song. We lost song for about 2 minutes. So let me take you right back to that road. Let's talk about the Mabura Road.
Yes. Oh, I was saying that 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 the road from Linden to Mabura, it's a coalition project, and it's the first leg. It was meant to be the first leg of bringing to realization the dream of building a road from Georgetown to Brazil. We keep saying Georgetown to Brazil, but it's really Georgetown to Lethem, right? But we understand what we're talking about because we said Brazil originally because it was meant to be the final leg of the trans the Trans-Pacific Atlantic the Pan America highway, because now if we complete that leg, you can drive right through straight up, going straight up to North America, Central America, and so on. So our part is the final leg of it, and the bridge was part of that, and the Brazilian government built the bridge, for which we're thankful for, but we don't have an asphalted road from Lethem that comes right up to say Linden. We already have the Linden Highway, and of course the widening of the East Bank Road and so on and so forth, which of course the widening of the East Bank Road can't take the kind of traffic in terms of those heavy 32 wheelers and so on. So that would have to be a road that not only widened but built to take the real kind of traffic, increase in traffic that will take place. So the Mabura to the Linden to Mabura stretch is the first phase. And when I think it was Cameron was the British Prime Minister at the time, who had come to the Caribbean and offered a couple £100 million to the Caribbean. I guess was his way of even though we're not going to say outright sorry for slavery, we are going to pay part reparations. But anyway, but we got some amount of it, and we decided to use that grant to do the first stretch of the road from Linden to Mabura. We were also thinking about doing other things, including the waterfront, the Georgetown waterfront, and the seawall, enhancing the seawall. But the Linden to Mabura road took a lot of the money, and in fact took almost all of the money, £50 million. And together with a loan from the CDB, I think CDB loan gave us a loan of about $112 million US dollars, and I think another 12 million US, which the government again will contribute. You will see the realization of the stretch of the Linden Mabura Road. And that was a coalition project pursued with vigor and energy, and recognizing we wanted to turn words into action. Okay? And as I was saying, the high priest in this government had said that were they to come to power, they will remove the $50 million from that road to do something else. What else he didn't name. But happily, we are going to see in 2 months, 8 months, 2 years, whatever, an asphalted, internationally built road that could withstand the vagaries of a rainforest. And so hopefully the government, if they're still there, will pick up the baton and have the road completed from Maburo to Letem. But don't let it run into your community and it's their road and it's their project and so on, because they will not name the coalition as initiating or bringing the road to where it is, or whatever other project that it is. And I will say, and in that respect, you see a heightened activity that was meant to lead up to August the 2nd. You see people running into communities that are coalition, that identify with the coalition. As I was saying, you see most of all run into Region 5, taking pictures with the people there. In the same community, Ithaca, where they have the government through the RDC has taken back the equipment that was given to the community under the RAID project that was financed by the CARICOM Development Fund. You see Rodriguez running up in Linden, telling people, sharing out house lots, and telling people that they must get on board with the government, and so forth. I am on record the last time in that same Ithaca community as saying, look, when these people come to your community, do not chase them. Work with them, because the resources that they will be doling out are your resources. This is not PPP resources. They don't have an oil drum or a bank or a vault where they have their own money and they can dole it out as they see fit. This is taxpayers' money. And where it's borrowed money, it's taxpayers' money that will have to be used to repay the borrowed money. So it didn't make any sense that you chasing them out when they come to your community. If they come into your community for anything other than development purposes, you got a right to determine how you treat with them. But otherwise than that, the only way that you could get your problems solved is by them coming to your community, understanding your problems, working with you. And to the extent that they are willing to do that, you accommodate them. If they want to take pictures, go ahead. Take pictures. But these people have to understand. They have to understand that at the end of the day, the government is not doing them favors. And they don't owe the government anything. So telling me get on board or else, I see that as a threat. And the young lady may be both young in age and politics, but somebody needs to rein in her before it gets dangerous and act against the government. Don't go into people's communities, especially the ones that you don't control politically, and tell them but get on board or else. That is not language. That is not language befitting any political leader or group or so on, and certainly not in communities where you don't control politically. That would be my advice to the young lady. But the people in those communities ought not to become starry-eyed. They ought not to become starry-eyed. What they must do is to work with the government for progress in their communities. But always remember where they're voting, where their vote count, or where their votes go. Don't let people come in your community and throw $5 or throw a Granger or throw a Cathedral or some sort of thing to you and think that they can buy you. Which is what this government is famous for in communities that don't vote for them. And that is something our communities need to learn very, very fast and very carefully. Because there is that belief abroad that we can be bought. there's that strong belief abroad that we can be bought. And not only bought for fried rice, right? Or some similar low price item or so on. And we have to put the debt to such thinking by those people. We have to put it in a coffin. But it's not going to be put in a coffin if we allow ourselves to be used in that manner. And too often I've seen where that has taken place. Too often I've seen that where that has taken place. We need to learn from others where this is concerned. You know, so I would say again to all those communities, make certain that you are getting a fair share of the resources for your development. Work with the government insofar as it relates to progress and development of your communities. But if they come in there for a puppy show or just a tech to say, well, look, you see one Guyana and so on, what they will do. I hope they know this, which they will do. So you have to also be very careful of what you're taking out. Because they are going to put up those pictures come August the 2nd and so on and says, look, we have integrated our people and so on, look our ministers with among these people, these communities and so forth. So we have to be very wary. And again, as I said, it might be a good tactic with these meetings that the coalition have planned. It might be a good tactic to have a conversation with the communities, all the communities, but especially those for which visits have been made by various government officials, to let the communities know exactly what I'm saying, but to understand and keep their head on. That is what will be one of the important takeaways from these meetings, that as they go around the place. Because as you can see, there's a heightened set of activities by the government in these places. It is no accident. It is no accident that the We Care grant has been launched this week. Okay? It is launched to lead up to that same August the 2nd. All right? Now, Guyana got to be, in these modern times, we have to be among the few countries in the world where we can share roughly 12 or 13 billion dollars in the COVID grant, and another 3.2 billion dollars expected to be shared under the We Care grant, all in cash. All in cash. In a modern society, we are walking around the place with cash.
Let's talk about the weaknesses of that.
Look, even before we get to the weakness, let us start with the weaknesses and then I'll speak of the other part of it. Now, you can see the holes that are created both in terms of management of the cash, in terms of accounting for the cash, and in terms of transparency of the cash. You're walking around with cash, going to different regions and districts and so on, and telling me that you're depending on teachers and whoever else to identify who are parents of students of the class, and then you will share out money afterwards, and then they will sign. Now, any auditor gonna have a nightmare trying to figure out who was real and who was not so real. They're gonna have a nightmare because you're not talking about sharing out to 2,000 people or 200 people. You're talking about sharing out monies to thousands upon thousands of people. Thousands upon thousands of people. auditor to go around trying to find a signature of Mr. X or Miss Y and so on who live in Timberland or in Guyland or something where they have to take a plane. They have to take a plane and go and walk 10 miles or 50 miles or something into some part, but you're looking for to test to see whether X and Y.
So
in this country that you have banks. Huh?
So in short, you're saying that there's
banks.
Sorry.
Yeah? Sorry?
In short, you're saying that there's a high possibility or probability of extensive fraud taking place.
I am saying that.
But let me ask you this. I mean, you have identified the possibility of fraud by the ordinary parent or so on and so on and so forth. What's the possibility of fraud from the official end?
I am not. No. I'm not identifying thing by fraud by parent. I am identifying fraud in the system, not only by parent or so on. I'm identifying fraud in the system because you could have a lot of bogus signing in a back room and saying that these were parents who signed for this money and the money creamed off.
So do you suspect that might be the real intent behind this kind of distribution? Because let me tell you from experience on the ground. During the COVID-19 distribution, I know of many instances where persons were given money after agreeing to left a blind with the protecting officer or with the distributing clerk. Likewise, with the pink slip recently, I've received reports that in Borbis, people actually got money during the first phase of the distribution. I've also been given money during the pink slip revisit recently.
Karaki, I am saying that is all part of the reasons why the system is ripe for the taking, for corruption. Nobody in the right mind will do something like what we're doing here. No one in the right, there's no proper accountability. Having people you claim torn up and being identified by somebody and saying, well, that's a parent. Yes, and that's a parent for X child, and so forth. Having them torn up and say, but they'll sign in. Or somebody else who don't turn up in the back room, they have a whole set of people signing in the back room, and the money disappear. Look, this is not a way to go. Not a way to go. And a proper system could have been organized where the bulk of the money would have passed through an official system such as a bank or a post office or some sort of thing. You can't be walking around with $3 billion in cash or $9 billion in cash. I recognize in areas far-flung in Rupununi and so on, you may have to have a little cash to pay. But that will be a very minute sum and minute part of the overall number of people in which you wish to deal with. You can't have this kind of scenario taking place. In this big day and age, you got people walking around with cash, saying, but you handing out cash. This is a system that is ripe for corruption. It cannot be properly accounted for. There's a high probability of mismanagement and so forth.
Are you surprised that there has not been an effort to execute a major heist of the bag, as I would call it?
What I am really surprised at are two fronts. One is that there is no set of procedures that have been made public as to how this We Care grant is to be operationalized. There are no set of procedures. Okay? There are absolutely no set of procedures that would have included things like management, accountability, transparency, security, and all these different things. There are none. And secondly, the audit of seems to have taken a complete backseat. No surprise to me. No surprise to me. They seem to have taken a complete backseat where this matter is concerned. They have offered no advice, no suggestion, especially with the experience of the COVID grant. They have offered no advice that has been made public about this whole matter. And up to this day, they can't come with a preliminary report of the COVID grant distribution. They had lots of time between the ending of the first grant and the now second grant of the pink slip to issue a preliminary report. But you have had no such report forthcoming, and therefore we don't understand some of the challenges, some of the problems, some of the issues and so forth that took place during the distribution of the COVID grant. Running around the place trying to distribute $12 billion in cash. $12 billion in actual cash in this society. So I am, nobody with a modicum of understanding and knowledge of finance and so forth can be pleased with this nonsense. When they brought out that forced recare grant, I think they had used Western Union, among others, financial institutions to distribute the grants. Now they are walking around with cash, different places. This now is more of the and in the context of COVID, imagine you have ministers running around showing and then interviewing poor people, interviewing people for them to say nice things about the grant. Oh, my foot cutter, my last thing and so on. Thank you for the 19,000. This is an insult to poor people.
But just suppose this 19,000. Just suppose the 19,000 against the 50,000 promised.
Well, it's not even 19,000 because the 4,000 uniform grant was always there. And I think they said they increased the uniform grant. So out of that 19,000, they take out the uniform grant.
So it's 15,000 as against 50. Or did we mishear?
Look, and those are points that the opposition them can run with. I mean, as I said, we put out here some of the issues, and they are as stark as ever. But for me, I'm not going to tell people not to accept the money. Every little bit in this crisis helps. But what I am going to say, I've said during the budget time, that it is the focus in the context of this pandemic is totally misplaced. Totally misplaced. You give somebody $19,000 and you push a mic in front of their face and tell them, say how great this $19,000 will be to you, how you're glad you get it and so on. And poor person frightened to say anything else before they take away the 19,000 from them, and this is cash, not a check or anything. So the man see he or she see $19,000. They say, yes, man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
You gotta sing for your supper.
But if you go, but if you want poor person and ask them to speak truthfully, they will tell you what $19,000 could do for me. They don't want to sound ungrateful, but they're singing reality to you. What $19,000 can do for me? I got 3 children. This is a representative thing. I got 3 children, all of them were going to school. Right now, none, of course, going to school, whether virtually or otherwise. Right? They're the home, the play, the thing, they're bored, everything else, and over a year already, and they haven't learned anything. And now they seem disinterested in school. You ask them, well, what do you think should happen? And right away it comes to him. He says, listen, why can't the government buy tablets for these children? Why can't the government buy data? says, I'm a grandfather, I don't work, but I'm looking after these children. Why can't the government give me a monthly to maintain these children? They're in school, they get hot meal and so on. They're out of school, they ain't getting hot meal. And I got to go and find these things. And I don't have the money. You understand? And this is just something I'm making up.
Yes.
They got more horror stories. Right? They got more horror stories. And you're talking about we're not even bringing, as a matter of fact, the scenario where a number of people have lost their jobs in this whole pandemic, and especially post-August the 2nd. There is significant 99% of people who have lost their jobs post-August the 2nd happen to be African guys. So you have got this scenario, this haunting scenario of households with virtually no money. Households who are facing the highest increases in prices. Certainly in recent times, the highest increases in prices, for which the government has shown a level of ineptness in dealing with. They have now thrown up their hands and say, well, it's international factors, it's this factors, and so on. All of those factors they're trotting out could be correct. But what does it have to do with the ordinary person's standard of living? How are you mitigating those? I ain't doubting you that the COVID has thrown up shortages in food and building materials and shipping and all these things that have carried up costs. I ain't doubting that. I ain't doubting that the flood has had impact on greens and all these things. I ain't doubting that. But at the end of the day, that has to do with the household for whom you have thrown out of work. Only yesterday I was hearing of an individual who used to work with Statistical Bureau and who subsequently went on and got a master's degree and was working at one of the other independent state institutions, have died. You have a scenario where you have households whose parents have been retrenched, have been thrown out of jobs, have used up virtually all of whatever they were able to save, and are now faced with horrendous, whether it's house rent or mortgage and light bill and water and transportation and of course food, and children who are not going to school and who have virtually no learning activity over the past year. But this government merely trots along, trotting out billing, while the people starving. People are literally starving. This is not propaganda. Day in, day out. How much money you're spending on this bridge? How much money you're spending on this road? All of those things are important, but it's an issue of priority. And the priority at this time, is the social infrastructure, not the physical infrastructure. And that social infrastructure is about human beings. Social infrastructure. Human beings. And that is where this government is failing miserably.
Is it because they don't know or they don't care?
There's a time, both, both. I keep saying people always feel that if you got a bunch of high rise running around the place, it is counted as development. That's why in many countries you got shiny, tall buildings and so on. And in the midst of all those shiny, tall buildings, you got many slums. Slums all over the place. Because people tend to equate development with high-rise buildings. You know, high-rise buildings and opera houses and waterfront thing and so on. And then you have huge slums upon slums, and garbage thrown all over the place, and forests being burnt down to get firewood and heat, and so on. And you got this going on here. Listen, I keep saying, we're not saying that building the roads and all these different things not important, but you are in a pandemic. And you have to deal with the social part in a pandemic. That is human beings. You have to deal with them in the pandemic. They take more importance, more priority, and so on.
But
deal with them actually, and this is a case where people have lost their jobs, people's income have reduced, because of the massive increases in prices all wrong, their income would have been reduced. That is what we have to tend to. And I'm saying, God bless this country opportunely with the resources that can be used to attenuate the situation at the social level. God bless us with resources. You got with this 75 million that they said they're going to get from the last shipment of oil, over 400 million US dollars in the natural resource fund. If you identify half of that 200 million, that will give you 40 billion roughly of Ghana dollars. And that 40 billion you can use immediately for buying the tablets, buying the data, and paying a monthly stipend to all those in need of it to take care of their children. It can also assist in bringing out retired teachers and so forth to assist in this pandemic in the learning until we could get people back to work and back to school.
But it would appear as though the provision of such services are a priority for the prison system instead.
Well, as I said though, the people themselves have to make known to the government. You can't, look, those people who are still waiting in the flood. You take $10 billion, the money can't reach them yet. The money can't meet to them yet. Okay? You can tell you all kind of thing about who come from Sedemo, who come here, who come there. Look, people understand all of that. But for the time being, their lives are ruined. Their lives are ruined. Whether it's their houses, got to be knocked down. They lost all their things in their house. They'll have no food and all these kinds of things. And you telling me, but people have done the assessment and they got to write up a report and they got to do all this kinds of thing and so on. All of that is important. But there's a difference between things that are called immediate, short term, middle term, and long term. And many of those people immediately need certain things. One of the critical things they need is food and shelter. Food and shelter. What are we doing about that? All those people who went through the flood. So flood plus pandemic equal misery. And in a country that has enormous resources, we seem, in terms of government, no different than Haiti. Country with enormous resources. We are messing this up. And you can't even say even in the name of politics. Let me don't even blame politics this. This is sheer incompetence. It is sheer incompetence. You run around the place, shoving $19,000 into somebody and pushing a mic in front of them and say, tell the world how pleased you are with the $19,000 that we're giving you. Belittling the poor people. Belittling them. You know, it's you know, sometimes you wonder whether, you know, if we were a little Barbados with no resources or so on, whether we would have been better off than a country with so much resources, yet still continue to remain poor because of poor administration. Poor administration. That is all. Because you got all these resources. All these resources. Poorly administered equals poverty for most of the people. So I would hope that we will see a quick turnaround on these events, especially in this COVID that doesn't seem to be going anywhere in Guyana. I think up to yesterday, there were 503 deaths. 503 deaths. With
67% of those deaths taking place in 2021. 67%.
Yes, taking place in 2021. And you have people trotting out things that COVID seemed to be on the wane, and we're still on course for September opening of schools. I mean, isn't there a time for propaganda?
Mr. Jordan.
And a time for reality?
Earlier you mentioned the people being important in terms of the social infrastructure and so on. What is important for these people? Don't let anybody tell you about being on course to anything. Look at Linden recently. What is important is bringing hundreds and thousands of people together under tents to hand out paper. As if COVID doesn't exist, as if these numbers are not real. But on the other hand, they are bullying, and I maintain they are bullying public servants and the poorer class to take these vaccines, right? They're bullying them. There's several private companies, the public agencies, the Guyana Defense Force in particular, that are putting in place some measures which are really, really oppressive to get people to take these vaccines. But the government is organizing mass spreaders.
Yes, there seems to be a real contradiction. There seems to be a real contradiction there. And when you have this curious situation where the private sector commission has to write the president and asking the president to intervene because a certain place is not observing the COVID guidelines. Did you find this to be absolutely amusing?
Of course it has to be.
It's got to be absolutely amusing. Amusing that a private sector commission in the form of its chairman could be writing the president, asking the president to intervene, when the very president established a COVID task force to look after these matters. And this task force is headed by none other than his prime minister. Are you saying the prime minister is incompetent? Are you saying that he has no powers?
You're asking or are you suggesting?
Are you saying he's ineffective? Are you saying he's ineffective?
You want me to answer?
The private sector, listen, the private sector commission chairman didn't write the task force head, which is the prime minister. In his own considered opinion, he felt that the prime minister must have been ineffective. He gone up to the president and write an asking the president, not bringing a general issue, but bringing a specific issue to the president's attention. Asking the president to get involved in getting this particular place to observe the COVID guidelines. And a couple days afterwards, they're having super spreaders, right? They're having big tent in Linden. vaccination rate, you have them in tent, and you have big cameras in front of the face showing that you sharing out house lot to people. Who knows?
How?
God forbid you might be sharing out house lot to dead people who, because of the super spreader event, more likely to contract the COVID and the deadly Delta variant of COVID. And all in the name of saying, look, you see what we're doing for them community that supposedly were neglected by the coalition?
But Mr. Jordan, isn't it quite a feat that in less than a year this government has been able to find so many house lots to share out, and they have not been able to do it in 23 years?
Well, if on the face of that alone, you could say people may be learning from their mistakes. And notice also what they're trying to do is, in their assessment, they feel the coalition is at a low ebb, and therefore their communities are ripe for the pickings. And so, with that in mind, they are rushing into these coalition communities. But God bless those communities, because whether what I'm saying is true or not, it means they are getting something. Whereas in the 23 years, they were completely neglected. So they're rushing into those communities and engaging in activities which they feel, well, first of all, they know it goes to the heart of the individual, housing and house lot, and which they feel have the potential for buying votes and bringing them votes. They are going to spring the local government elections on you sometime, and they're hoping in those communities it will be a test of their gratitude. Okay? And using that as a springboard for the general elections. But that's what they're doing. And therefore coalition people and coalition politicians and so on, they have to absorb that. And they have to know how to deal with that. But it's clear that the government feels that the coalition is at its lowest ebb, the opposition is at its lowest ebb. It has its worries, and while it's dealing with its worries, we can move in. And that is good politics. That is good politics. If your communities are prime for the taking, let us move in and take them. And it's up to the coalition to determine how to deal with that. Because if they continue having their energies sapped in fighting and who attacking to who, and and who backstabbing who, and and who bringing out the forces against who, and all this kind of story. And while you are doing all of that, the elephant comes in, the lion comes in, and he eats all of the actors. All of the actors. Not one. All of them. Leaving all their communities prime for the takeover by the government. And that is exactly what is happening. Notice a demarche into the communities of this is that goodwill that these people are after. They smell blood. They recognize that the opposition is involved in internecine strife and wounding each other, and therefore incapable of taking care of their communities. And so they have made that push into the communities in the hope of taking them over. And it's up to those communities now to see through what is happening. Like I said up front, count the blessings, take all what they've given you. Take all what they're giving you and more. But let them know that I can't be bought for a Granger or a cathedral or so on. Bring it on, bring it, and so forth. It's me resources. I'm happy you're coming and so on. But you have to let them know.
And I do hope the opposition recognizes that is what they have to speak and preach to the communities which they represent. Because like we talk ever so often about the silence. The point I was trying to make, or the point I want to highlight, is that looking at the president, I don't think this cabal could have come into office and just develop those lands in that short period of time to distribute. And so I would expect that the coalition will be singing their praises to say, hey, thanks for handing out what we prepared. Right?
Well, but Kodaki, that point I have raised and raised and raised. And with the exception of myself and David Pattison, and to some extent, what's her name? Cathy Hughes, I don't see coalition ministers and members out there fronting the projects that we left and the state in which we left. And not only doing it in the guerrilla type fashion, you do it now and then you wait till next year when they come up. These people are relentless. They have the Powell strategy. They bombard you over and over and over. So even if you come back with a reply today, they have 100 people lined up to swamp that reply. Okay? The bishop brought up him out about Mandela, Sheriff Mandela. I don't know. He has to know about Sheriff Mandela because he was the junior minister at the time when the Sheriff Mandela was conceptualized and the loan was signed in 2012. And he then goes and rump him out now as Minister of Public Works about the project. And I was so happy that David Pattison came back within reasonable time and put the facts out there. Up to now, they can't come back. Because one thing about facts, they're different from lies. They can't come back. They can't get the 100 people swamping that. Because that is facts. And the IDB Office of Corruption, imagine, had to come to this country and threaten our portfolio. But once the facts go out there, my friend, once David put out all the facts there, they couldn't swamp as they normally will do. They couldn't swamp those facts. They couldn't swamp those facts. And he had to do what he was supposed to do. Put up and shut up.
Very well.
When you're on shaky ground.
So we need some more partisans. It's now 8:16.
But
yes, I'm listening.
Yes, Kadaki, what I'm saying, coming back to your point about the land, the Linden has, I think, 2 or 3 left. They have Sayers, they have Figueroa, they have the mayorship, they have the regional chairman. All those different people are coalition people. All those different people are coalition people. And of course, you also had, what's her name? Yearwood, whatever, was the minister. All those people you have. And if they can't, if none of them, or all of them can't come out and put out there what you just now said, which is true, what you just now said, then, what does it mean for me and David and whoever else who strive to, as soon as they put out something there that tells you, we run out there and we say, no, this is what happened and so on. We can't just do all the work. Few people just can't do all the work, And they want to sit back and allow the government to expropriate, whatever, all the projects and the ideas, everything that the coalition government did, left, and so on. Well, they have to know the impact and the implications of that will have on their chances of regaining government. Because the people have successfully have their PR that the coalition did nothing. They have successfully put out that PR that the coalition did nothing. And it is easy for some of these communities to say, yes, the coalition did nothing for we. Thank you for the 5 cents you give away. So said that's human nature. I don't know. I said that's ungratefulness anyhow. But that is people. But unless they put out there what we have done, and as everybody knows, we have done a tremendous amount in all areas, but I said, you can't put that out in a guerrilla manner. You put out something today, and then the people come back and swamp you, and then you get tired and fed up and you run away and left it at that. You are the ones in politics, and you have to deal with that. And you have to deal with it frontally, and you have to deal with it to the letter and consistently and everything else. Otherwise, come out today with a press statement, and then your last in translation somewhere along the line, ain't gonna cut it. And that's why I'm saying the coalition also needs to adapt the strategy where as soon as people run into your areas, you have to make certain that your representatives in those areas and you yourself are there next day, understanding what it is that took place and so forth, and continuing to give the people guidance, and letting them know that we are firm with you and so forth.
It's 8:20, Mr. Jordan. I have to let you go. But the one thing I want to say, to reiterate all that you've said, is the coalition has to behave as though it's a government. It has to behave as if it's in government and behave as how governments behave. It's as simple as that.
The coalition is a government in waiting. That is what an opposition is about. The opposition is a government in waiting. And that is why Churchill said they are there not to quarrel with the present government. They are there to expose, depose, and oppose. They are the government in waiting. If you don't do those things, then you will be in opposition forever. You will be in opposition forever. You have to be artful. You have to have guile. You have to have tact. You have to know when to attack. You have to know when to defend. You have to know when to negotiate. You have to know to do all these things that a government will normally do. And you are the government in waiting. And that is why it is not only devolved upon you to just oppose, but people must be able to see what it is that you are offering me. Why is your program superior to what they are putting out there? And there's lots that can be done in that regard.
Thank you, sir. 8:21. You tuned to the Buxtonian Morning Time. Thank you, Mr. Jordan, for your time as usual. Stay well. Watch the weather.
Yes,
you can go back to bed. You're a retiree.
Yes, the weather is setting up nicely. Some more
and if the weather is going to have a negative impact on you, I dare recommend a bottle of Strokers. You know the number to call.
Yes. All right, my brother. Thanks for the advice.
Have a good day.
And stay safe.
Yes, sure. At 8:22, the lines are now open. 622-5933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk that thing. We perhaps are going to have to go to 9 o'clock. Mr. Jordan have had a lot to say, and we were happy to receive. 622-5933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk the thing. They got enough things to talk about. What's your name? Calling by what's happening over there? Why aren't you defending your officers against the onslaught of these many commanders and commissioners of police who are rising because they know the president, the illegitimate president, the fat guy, or because they know somebody who knows somebody in the cabal? Why aren't you defending your ranks? What?
Hello?
Calling live, good morning.
Former finance minister who just left. It's always good to hear brother speak there. And good morning to everyone in the diaspora, particularly Guyana. Mr. Finance Minister raised a few good points that I'd like to comment on. The point about the allocation of money, he says they were running around with about $12 billion to disperse, to give out for COVID relief. About 8 months ago, I had raised the point on a post about the allocation of monies. And so I agree with Minister Jordan that it is so wrong, unprofessional, haphazard to go giving out cash money. Look, here's a system that works. We have GCOM with ID cards. So we make the merge temporarily for the disbursement of funds through GCOM, NIS, National Insurance Scheme, the guy in the post office. Okay? And those three bodies already have the infrastructure across the length and breadth of Guyana to allocate funds for pensioners. So the mechanism is there. The integrity is already there for handling cash. The transparency mechanism and accountability mechanism is already established in NIS, in the post office, with GCOM. And if you want, you could bring in GRO there to facilitate, verification, in real time through the network system that they have. So this would eradicate immediately this thing about transparency, this haggling about people and get this money. All the transparency and accountability mechanisms are there for the allocations of funds. I'm saying this to the PPP. Jack Dale, shame on you, because you should know better. But you allow this to happen so that you could scamp the money, so you could erase the paper trail. Jack Dale, a shame on you as an accountant and a financial expert. If that is the amount of what you learned in Russia, shame on you. So I'm calling your professionalism into question, Jack Dale. You could do better than that. So, now, on the issue of COVID monies, the government, APNU, I want to say to the APNU, $50,000 is shamelessly insufficient. When you were in power, the $50,000 which you allocated is shamelessly insufficient. That can't take care of no family for 2 months. No family. So, we want to say, you know the song, loyalty over royalty, adapt me a deal with? I want to make it applicable to the listening. It's not about party. I'm putting Guyanese first, party last. That means the PPP and the PNC last. Because at the end of the day, it's the people who are suffering with a minuscule amount of $50,000 that is grossly insult on President Granger and the entire coalition that sat down and came up with that idea. And I guess together with the PPP, who were in opposition, who I guess helped to facilitate that. Now the PPP are coming with $25,000. That is even doubly insufficient. Everywhere else around the world, people are giving money. Now let me go to the internet situation. Mr. Jordan raised a beautiful point, which I've been crying since 2013. 2013, I've been saying in Cariveton, Berbice, that we need to allocate regions of hotspots across Guyana. Now with COVID, the rest of the world, poor countries, are putting hotspots so the children could go to school via the hotspots. All the work is sent on WhatsApp. The children take the work home, they do it, and then they send it back via WhatsApp. They go to class just the same way Kadaki is holding his show on the live. The classes could be conducted on the live. That's how people go to universities, right? And that's how the president said he went to University of Ireland. He did online studies. So online studies is, is the thing of the day. And it can be done through Facebook, live. So I'm asking the genius of the PPP, again, shame on you. What's the lady name of the minister? Shame on you, Priya Manager. Is that the level of your competence to envision? You control GT&T. You can't tell me you can't put a hotspot in every region. Generally, in a region where the people go and download the stuff. My children go and they download stuff, put it on their WhatsApp, and they come back home and do the homework. Then they upload it and send it back to whatever school teacher it has to go to. Why is it that Guyana controls GT&T and Priya Manichan cannot tell me that they cannot do something as simple as that within 30 days? 30 days flat. That could be done across the length and breadth of Guyana. What's the hold up, Priya Manichan? Where's the vision? I challenge you. So you could redeem yourself and say, I am indeed a woman with a vision. Redeem yourself, Priya Manichan. Show us that you've got at least some kind of vision, not as a PPP, but as a Guyanese. I give you that much credit. So I want to recap. The infrastructure is already there. It is grossly insufficient. The monies that they're giving, $50,000 and $25,000, is grossly insufficient. And lastly, needs to step up. It's a pandemic. Needs to step up. You got 20% share. Let's see you got 20% share in GT&T. What good is it to have 20% share? And it means nothing to mobilize our society. Absolutely nothing. What good is it?
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for listening.
Caller Live, good morning.
Listeners, the next thing, this GT&T thing. Now, with pre-marriage and ministry education, I noticed yesterday that GT&T has a new manager. But the thing is, with GT&T and this education program now, our schools GT&T could have hooked up hotspot just as what Mr. Grange was doing
Caller.
when he was in his
Caller.
in his term. Yes,
Caller.
sir.
Before you continue,
Yes.
let me inform you, and let me remind the previous caller. The Barjagdio Irfan Ali, well, not Irfan Ali, Barjagdio Donald Ramatar government.
No idea for education.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
The 20% shares that the government had in GT&T was sold under the PPP government. So GTT is a totally private-owned company, right? And so private enterprise concerns themselves with profit. Unless somebody is paying for it, they have no interest in that. And I don't blame them, right? It is the government who has the people's resources, and the government must use the people's resources to benefit the people. Just so I clarify that. Go ahead.
You could get the amount of
Caller, you have to speak to the program, not listen to the device. The lines remain open. That caller will have to call back. Please understand when you call, you speak to the program. You can't be listening to the listening for yourself on the program because it has a delaying effect, and so you will be holding up the phone and waiting to hear yourself. That's not how it's done. Nola, whatever your name, James Simpson or whatever. You said a miss class or a miss school? Well, you best learn to spell pity. It has one T. You decide where you will put the T. You could put it at the back or in front. But it has one T. Right, Nola? I don't know why y'all is coming to aggravate me some mornings. So the lines remain open 6225933. We got about 26 minutes or so to go. A lot of people, or Skine and the others, James and Simpson and whoever y'all be, you come here to represent nonsense. You come here to defend the indefensible. Call A Live, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. On the point of the distribution of this cash, the only reason why the government is doing it that way is that they would, at the end of the day, won't have any money trail whatsoever. So nobody will kind of come, because they could have simply put it through the post office, those who don't have bank accounts, or put it through the bank, those who have bank accounts, and let people go and collect the money. But by giving them cash money, there's no paper trail whatsoever to determine where the money went and who received the money. So, and I think the opposition government needs to step up the ante in different villages and communicate with the people and let them know what's going on, so they can accept whatever the PNC the PFP wants to give to them, but still at the same time knowing that they're not going to sell out because they receive some cash grant or they receive a piece of land. You know what I mean? Just take what they have to take and just make sure they keep their loyalty where it belongs. Thank you very much for your time and keep up the good work.
You see, issues like these point out to me, not that I want to be disrespectful, but issues like these point out to me the lack of education of Guyanese. We have a serious education deficit in this place. I mean, forgive me for saying it, but I always like to refer to the Dr. Jennings study, which found out that I think 89% of Guyanese were functionally illiterate. Right? Functionally illiterate, 89%. Dr. Jennings did a study with the University of Guyana some years and found that out. And every day, you see that fact being borne out in society. Because Guyana has to be one of the most backward countries. Unless we're doing business in cash, we're not doing business. I can't go to the average supermarket, hardware store, whatever, and say, well, I will pay with a debit card, or worse yet, I will pay with a check. Debit card, you have no infrastructure, checks, they don't take them. And so this illegitimate cabal is simply continuing the kind of decadence and backwardness. This is an opportune time to use these grants to get Guyanese into the system. Yes, we are going to distribute these grants, but we are going to pay them into bank accounts. If you don't get a bank account, then you ain't going to get it. You will see the number of persons who will go and get their bank accounts established if they don't have. We are going to pay these grants, but we're only going to pay them through credit union or bank accounts. So those who don't want to go to the banks will use credit unions. Governments have to have IDs. And I don't believe it's a case. I don't believe it's a case where they don't have IDs. I believe it's a case where they're using the ignorance or arrogance of the people to continue to perpetrate crimes against the people. And I'm talking about financial crimes. Because like the caller rightly said, if you have to go through an established system like paying through the bank, then the paper trail is easier to follow. I hear a lot of the callers saying there will be no paper trail. There always are paper trails. You will always have paper trails. The issue would be how easy it is to decipher, to interpret, to analyze the paper trail. How can you analyze something that is written in pen? How can you keep track of something in pencil and paper? Any of you who studied accounts will know that you have to go and do what they call single entry accounting. You got to pick up that single entry and try to reconstruct what happened and hope that you arrive at the right place. And that's where I question the incompetence of people like the Auditor General. Because one would believe that the Auditor General, being given the constitutional authority that he has, would step in regardless of which government is in office, regardless of which political party heads the government, and say, hey, stop. This is not allowed. It can't happen. I'm going to veto it. I'm going to make it public. This is the wrong way you're going. This is how it should be done. No. But the professionals in this country, or so-called professionals in this country, who are supposed to be the safeguards of the system, are playing politics. They're playing politics. They're singing to political masters. And so the Auditor General only works when the PPP is not in office. But once the PPP is in office, he's on vacation all the time. Until the government changed like the last time. And that is what has us right where we are. Call A Live, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Now, I think that the time, if you really care about your children and their learning, take that $19,000, give it to Digicel, give it to GT&T, get tablets for the children so that they can learn. You give the people the money. You got debts to pay. Parents get knocked off. What do you think they will do with the money? You think it will go towards the children? These people are crazy. But you know what? They know people like money. So they're trying to buy votes in the smart TV. That's my contribution, sir.
Thank you. My idiot friend says that you won't get people to open bank accounts because there are certain requirements to opening bank accounts. That's the kind of functional illiteracy I'm talking about. There's a requirement, or there are requirements to do everything. Should we do nothing? And the very implementers of the rules, the guardians of the rules, and the guardians of these requirements, there's no flexibility to ensure that a smooth system can be established in a country. Y'all tell me. That's the kind of functional illiteracy which defends the PPP. And that's a functional illiteracy which has us right where we are. Because when you have a functionally illiterate person masquerading as a minister of education, what do you expect the education system to produce? Except functional illiterates. Y'all tell me. Call or hold the line. I'm getting some difficulty. I don't know why. Just now. I know I ain't functionally illiterate. It's device trouble. Looks as though we lost the call. No, the call, what's happening here? Call in here? Or you're gone? Looks as though we lost the call. Right? But that's the trouble. You have a woman masquerading as Minister of Education, but she is functionally illiterate. Functionally illiterate. How then can the education system work? When she is micromanaging the professionals in the education system. And when the professionals in the education system do not have spine enough to shut her up and put her in a corner, maybe arrange evening or night classes for her, how can we get better? That's it. How can we get better? People come in here to represent the government and can't spell. They can't spell pity, but they're representing the government. They're pitiful. Call in live, good morning.
To the program in terms of the cash grant. My thing is, you're giving $19,000 to each child. Now, as a teacher, we would have experienced where pupils, students are not being a part of our Zoom class because they don't have a device or a personal device to see. Why not invest that same 19 with a couple more and equip each child, each school child with a device? That way you will be better able to say you care. Because I can tell you, those parents are not going to use that $19,000 to get something for the child because cost of living is very high and people got needs. And so we at the same square one. And should school reopen, we're going to be, teachers going to see that there is lack of necessary tools in the classroom. Children are going to turn up without pencils. They're going to turn up without books. And we, the teachers that got nothing for the past year or more, will have to dig into our pockets to fortify those children with those very tools to do the work. So Priya, Dunson Priya, did not sit with her ministers, the installed government, and think they just make rational decisions. And it's a political game to buy the people, to keep them suppressed. We see little money. And so the government doing something for us. At the end of the day, it's not helping the situation. It's just fortifying themselves up there to thief a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Let me point out, I got a big student in this class. She and Priya must have went to the same classroom. Because Priya don't know pronouns. And this one doesn't know how to spell. Nola Simpson James. Go to Google. Speak to Google. And ask them to spell unleashed. And listen to the word. It is unleashed, not unleashed. Some of y'all are leech. And that is why you're spelling that word. Y'all are leeched. Yeah? Y'all sucking the blood out of the people. When my files on special branch, when my files are unleashed, who leached them in the first place? Nola Simpson, James, whatever you are. Go, birds of a feather flock together. This is the wrong place. We're dealing with education here. It's 12 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. The line remain open. And so you can call and let's talk the thing. Call and let us talk the thing. Right? And this is the same Nola Simpson James who keeps attacking the teachers as being lazy, as not working for 2 years. Well, Nola Simpson James, if you had attended 2 classes in your lifetime, you might have been better off. You know? And this is the thing. They say fox can't get a grape. He said sour. You failed to take your education. And now you're blaming teachers. You're blaming teachers. Instead of going into the classroom, you built school roof. And now you're blaming teachers for your incompetence, your functional illiteracy. Go Freedom House, man. See if I can help you out there. Birds of a feather. Call it live, good morning. That caller was maybe asleep. Caller, you live. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Kadowski. I want to tell you something. 2005, we had a flood, right? Where they go to every school, and these people come and they take your ID cards, and you put down your name, who get the flood and what have you. And then later down, they call you back and you go and collect a check, and you go to Bank of Guyana and collect the $10,000 they were giving you. It is good that you're saying, people are saying that let the government give device to children, but let me tell you right now, I have a laptop, one laptop to family. It is brand new in a box, not working. I have it here right now in my house. I can show you. It is not working, so don't let these people say, don't say let them give people device. It's nonsense. They just want to do what they feel like. When they take out, and then a lot of people are saying that let it take the money that they have there and give it to what they have sitting in the aisle money to give to people. Let them don't trouble that money, because if they trouble that money, it's more trouble. It's more trouble.
Caller.
More trouble for Guyanese.
Caller.
You know that?
Stick a pin. That money is done.
You're right.
There's no point of you having $100 in the bank to say you have $100 in the bank, but you borrowed $500. You're broke. You're in $400 debt. That is what the PPP has done. Because of them to get the money from the Sovereign Wealth Fund directly, they have to go through a set of measures and accountability to circumvent that. They're borrowing from outside.
Well, they don't want to do that. And the next thing, they're saying to every child that go to school, what about some people have some small children who go into kindergarten, nursery school? What happened to those children too? Do they entitle for money?
Every child.
Every child.
Every child.
Because right now I have two great grands. One is 4, and the other one is about 3. Next month he will be 3. And what would I do to get money for them? How would I get the money for them?
I guess I can't tell you. I'm not the government's PR. I don't know anything about this because we care anything.
It is an issue now that if you're saying children, those who are going to school will get, but what happened to these children who will be stepping out like supposed to step out September to school?
I think they're supposed to cater for the new intakes. If any teachers online here who can clarify that, or any of the PPP official, you could call in and tell us what's happening. Or even type.
Good.
Right? Because I think they cater for the new intakes also.
Okay. But what I'm saying right now is that the 25,000 have...
Credit alone done. I guess the college credit is exhausted. You know, there's so many things. There's so many things that could be done differently that would bring more benefit to people in this country. Other than walking around and cheering 19,000 or 25,000 or whatever the amount. Right? There's so many things. You see, improving people's lives, you have to have a willingness to do it. And so you work out a plan as to how to do it. It might take baby steps. And so you do it incrementally. Listen, we are in a pandemic. Students can't go to school. They need devices for online learning. When they get devices, they also will need internet access. can we start in this term by providing devices? Can we utilize this $3.2 billion and provide devices? 1 minute. Right? Can we utilize this $3.2 billion and provide devices? Maybe provide devices to the more critical set. Or devices and internet access to the most critical. Maybe those who are preparing for CXC. Next time we are going to deal with the other set. And so on. And eventually, maybe in a year, you get to provide what students really need to survive in this online period. But no, give them $19,000. They like money. Call A Live. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Only one thing I have.
Caller, speak to me. Don't worry the device. I'm listening.
Yes, the only one thing I want to say to the woman that called us now about her child who's to turn out to school, she has to register before the 30th of this month so that she can get that grant.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if you have a child who is due to go to school from September, a nursery child, then the registration must be done according to the caller before the 30th of July. And once a child is registered before the 30th of July, then they automatically qualify for that money. Right? So let me talk. So if you do this thing incrementally, who needs it most at this time? What will it cost to provide for those who need it most at this time? And so you take $3.2 billion and you ensure you satisfy the needs of those who need it most at this time. And when you get the next $3.2 billion, which is supposed to be within 3 months, because at least I am hoping that this, because we so-called CARE grant, is termly. Or are we talking about $19,000 a year? That's a question we must ask. Is this a term grant or is it a year grant? Because if it's a year grant, the average school year is about 9 months. And $19,000 in 9 months. Oh, Lord, oh. Is that the trouble now, you see? That's why they just can't take me. I too analytical, I too smart, I from Buxton back damn side, I functionally literate. Satira girl, short crook, fat guy, y'all come answer this question. Marcel Hudson, you should know too. Is this $19,000 for a term or is it for the year? Any of you know? Y'all call and tell me. I'm listening. I see a message coming. I wonder if it's to me. If it's an answer to that question. Y'all tell me. I want to know. Is it $19,000 for a 3-month term? Which comes down to about $6,333. Nola, you know the maths, you can't do mental. So don't even think about it, Marceline. Y'all go for your calculator. $19,000 for 3 months, assuming we have a 3-month term, is $6,333 a month. Right? But if it's a 9-month year, if that money represents a grant for a year, my God. 2 into 19. I mean 9 into 19. 9 2 is 18. It's just about $2,100 a month. What can $2,100 per month do for a student, do for a pupil in this era of online learning? I wonder how much your data plan. Y'all see this thing? So you have to analyze these monies, you know. Don't just let people poke money at you and call big numbers. What can be done with this money? What can you do with $2,100 for a student in online learning? Can't buy a device, sure. I don't know if it could buy a month plan because I think a month plan is almost $3,000 or more. So what is grant really supposed to do? Rakesh Pare asks the question or says or makes the statement, you're lucky to get 19,000. What did Granger give y'all? Granger gave the students boats, bikes, and books and so on. That's what he gave the students. And equate the value of that to 19,000, you will see the difference. Right? Granger had the 5Bs program. The very program where the PPP had their acolytes, their operatives, sabotaging the buses by throwing water in the fuel tank. And other such nonsense like mad people do. Right? So Granger was providing transportation, he was providing school support in terms of books and so on, boots and so on. And they were also providing breakfast. Equate that to $19,000. And that's the thing with people. They prefer to have cash in their hand as against the material support, because cash in their hand, some parents get to do whatever they like with it. Some people get to flash their body at the expense of taxpayers. And so they feel that, hey, something is being done for us. With $19,000. But when you break it down to a week or a day, $2,100 a month, the average child goes to school for, oh Lord, oh, here we go again. You go to school for about 20 days in a month. It's $100 a day. $100 a day the PPP giving students. And you're singing and jump up. $100 a day. Or you want to be exact, $105 a day. So you're going to get $2,100. Can you believe it? And some fool telling me or asking me how many students get bikes and boats or thing. Buses, bikes, whatever. The 5Bs provided community access, communal access. Every child who was desirous of accessing it could have accessed it. Do you all understand that? Every child who was desirous of accessing the 5B program, wherever it was available, could have accessed it. So if your parents were in dire strait, common sense would tell you access it. But here it is. They took it away. They took the boats out of the rivers. They threw them in a corner. The buses they left, took off the names and so on, and got all kind of things happening to them. But they're giving students $105 a day. And people are singing their praises. Functional illiterates like Marcel Erskine and Nola Simpson James. Can you believe it? Did any of you take the time to analyze that? Eureka! I found it because I analyzed it. Don Stubbs. Y'all tell Priya, that not make it. $105 a day. Have a good day, people. It's 4 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy your $105 a day. And continue to sing the praises of this wicked and illegitimate cabal. Celebrate $105 a day while they siphon off $105 million a day to their friends and cronies and put it in their convoluted bank accounts. Have a great day, y'all. Goodbye. We need some loyalty. We need some functional literate people. Functionally literate people in this society. We need leaders to take the time and speak to people in ways that they can understand. Right? Final one for the day. You're special, that's right. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I am from a small village in Babis, and in 2017, I saw where the Granger government set up a computer lab with internet connection and computer, and everyone in the village was able to benefit from that internet service. He was good on that front, but he wasn't a politician, and people need to give him some credit for that. That's my contribution.
Thank you. I see another functionally illiterate, April and June. April and June say, when you can give them $5,000 a day, I challenge you, April and June, to tell me how much money is $5,000. Oh, Lord, how much money is $5,000? When you can answer that question, come back on this live. Otherwise, scoot. Enjoy your $105 a day. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. It's Friday. We'll be taking it light.